Forget everything you think you know about peak oil. Forget the idea that the world is about to simply run out of oil one day, like a fuel gauge slowly hitting empty. That story is outdated, comforting, and dangerously wrong. The real threat facing the global energy system isn't about how much oil exists underground. It's about something far more unsettling. We are no longer finding enough new, economically viable energy to replace what we burn every single day. And the systems designed to compensate for that failure are breaking down in silence. This isn't a crisis that arrives with explosions or headlines. It creeps in quietly through balance sheets, reserve reports, canceled projects, and aging infrastructure. By the time the public realizes what's happening, the damage will already be locked in. Tonight, we're exposing the unseen threat behind the coming global energy shock. The collapse in new oil discoveries, the long-term consequences of underinvestment, the illusion created by high production numbers, and why the world may be heading toward an energy cliff edge faster than anyone is prepared for. This is not about politics. This is not about climate debates. This is about physics, capital, and time. And time is the one thing we no longer have. The silent erosion why we're looking in the wrong direction for decades. The energy debate is focused on one dramatic question. When will we run out of oil? But that question misses the real problem entirely. The planet is not running out of oil. What it is running out of is cheap, accessible, high-quality oil that can be profitably extracted at scale. And that distinction changes everything. Since the mid-2010s, something unprecedented has been happening beneath the surface of the global energy system. New oil discoveries have collapsed. Not slowed, not plateaued. Collapsed. During the early 2000s, the world discovered enough new oil each year to comfortably replace what it consumed. Today, we are discovering less than half of what we burn annually. And in some recent years, barely one-third. This means every day, the world is quietly drawing down its future energy supply. Like spending from a savings account with no income coming in. No alarm bells, no emergency meetings. Just slow, compounding depletion. Why discoveries matter more than production? Here's where most people get confused. They look at headlines saying, U.S. oil production hits record high, global output reaches new peak, inventories remain stable, and they assume everything is fine. But production and discovery are not the same thing. Production tells you how hard you are pushing the system today. Discovery tells you whether the system will still exist tomorrow. Imagine a farmer bragging about record harvests while planting fewer seeds every year. That's exactly what's happening in global energy. High production numbers today are being sustained by older fields being pushed harder, short-cycle shale wells with steep decline rates, increasing technical complexity and cost. This creates a false sense of security. But beneath that surface, strength is a structural weakness. Decline rates are accelerating. Most oil fields naturally decline by 4 to 8% per year. Shale wells decline much faster, often 60 to 70% in the first year alone. Without constant reinvestment in new discoveries, production doesn't just fall. It falls suddenly. The lost decade of underinvestment to understand why this crisis is forming. We need to go back. After the 2014 oil price collapse, something broke. Energy companies didn't just reduce spending. They abandoned long-term exploration. Mega projects were canceled. Deep water exploration was shelved. Frontier regions were written off. Then came investor pressure for capital discipline, ESG mandates restricting fossil fuel financing, government policies discouraging long-cycle projects. The result, a full decade of systemic underinvestment. Between 2015 and 2021, global upstream oil and gas investment fell by hundreds of billions of dollars compared to historical averages. Exploration budgets were slashed to the bone. Companies stopped looking for oil not because it wasn't there, but because they were punished for trying. This wasn't a market correction. It was a structural retreat, and energy systems don't forgive neglect. They remember it. ESG, unintended consequences. Let's be clear. This is not an argument against renewable energy or sustainability. The problem is sequencing. The world attempted to transition away from fossil fuels before building enough reliable alternatives. Capital fled traditional energy faster than demand declined, and demand didn't decline at all. Global energy consumption kept rising, driven by emerging markets, population growth, electrification, data centers, artificial intelligence. So what happens when investment collapses? But consumption doesn't. You get fragility. ESG pressures made oil politically toxic, but economically indispensable. And that contradiction is now tearing at the system. Producers hesitate to invest. Banks hesitate to lend. Governments hesitate to approve projects. Yet the world still burns over 100 million barrels of oil every single day. This isn't a transition. It's a stall at full speed. The illusion of inventory is another reason the crisis is being ignored. Inventories. On paper, oil stocks don't look catastrophic, but inventories are a lagging indicator. They tell you what happened yesterday, not what's coming tomorrow. High inventories can exist right up until the moment they vanish, because when supply tightens in a structurally underinvested market, prices don't rise smoothly. They spike. And when prices spike, export restrictions appear, strategic reserves are tapped, political pressure distorts markets. What looks like stability suddenly becomes scarcity. And once inventories fall below critical levels, recovery is not quick. It takes years, not months, to bring new supply online. Aging infrastructure, aging fields. There's another quiet problem few talk about. The world's energy infrastructure is old. Pipelines built decades ago, refineries operating beyond original design life, platforms exposed to harsher conditions. Maintenance has been deferred. Upgrades postponed. Redundancy eliminated. Why? Because capital flowed elsewhere. An aging system under stress doesn't fail gracefully. It fails suddenly. One disruption cascades into another. One outage triggers shortages across regions. One geopolitical shock sends prices soaring globally. This is no longer theoretical. We've seen it happen again and again. Why this crisis will be different. Past energy crises were driven by wars, embargoes, political decisions. This one is different. This crisis is structural. Even if prices rise tomorrow, even if companies rush to invest, the projects needed to fix this take 5, 7, even 10 years to deliver meaningful supply. You cannot fast-forward geology. You cannot instantly rebuild expertise. You cannot undo a decade of neglect overnight. That's why this threat is so dangerous. By the time the world reacts, the supply gap may already be locked in. The coming supply crunch. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The global energy system is entering a period where demand growth collides with declining investment capacity. That collision doesn't end with balance. It ends with higher volatility, persistent inflation, energy-driven recessions. Geopolitical instability. Energy is not just another commodity. It is the foundation of modern civilization. When energy becomes scarce or unpredictable, everything else follows. Food, transport, manufacturing, technology. Nothing is immune. Seeing the landscape clearly, the world isn't running out of oil. It's running out of time, discipline, and foresight. The real crisis isn't about scarcity underground. It's about the quiet erosion of the systems that turn resources into reality. Ignored discoveries, deferred investment, aging infrastructure, false confidence. This is the unseen threat. And whether we face it with preparation or panic will define the next decade, because energy doesn't care about narratives. It responds only to reality.